Welcome to the Bag Drop, Untold Stories in Golf. I'm your host, Matt Constantine, here with my co-host, Dr. Kevin Moore, the professor. Professor Slotcha, good morning, sir.
It is a great morning. I don't have a whole lot of banter to roll with today because of how excited I am about our guest. One of my favorite people in the world. He's meant a lot in my life in a couple different ways.
I think these intros are always about, excitement for you, me, our bond, our friendship, the lifetime of golf together. But today I think I might be superseded by someone that is he closer to you? I don't even know how to phrase it, but you guys have known each other for a long time.
It's like favorite courses. I'm not going to sit here and rank friends, but much like you, he plays the role of sort of mentor and friend, right? A friend that you learn from about every time you get to interact and hang out with them. And he's been one of the few that's played that role throughout my life. So today and you scheduled it. It showed up on my calendar. I'm like, well, okay, yeah, let's do this. This is awesome.
I knew
he's a hard guy to get out in the public figure. He likes to hide in the shadows. He likes to just be very reserved and kind of just observe in the corner and watch what's going on. So getting him at front and center is an exciting time.
Well, you probably understand his past life better than I, but I understand his current life fairly well. And so I knew what to dangle in front of him. We talked a lot of business and they said, oh, by the way, come on our show. So today, very special guest, Chris Wilson is joining us, former PGA Tour player, Korn Ferry Tour winner, now an advisor in the world of finance and business, but just an excellent dude. I have some early memories of, we're the same age, and I just remember him kicking my butt at tournaments all around Ohio, but I have one came back to me today. I'll wait for him to get on the show and we'll dive in. But there's a lot he has to share from just a fascinating, rare experience in the game of golf, right? Just spanning all those dimensions of high-level amateur to tour player to now, everyday Joe playing the game. And I just really look forward to hearing some of his perspective.
Yeah, he's definitely one of those guys that acts with intention in everything that he does. He went to Northwestern, which is obviously a very prestigious school, ended up being Big Ten champion, straight to PGA Tour. I remember in his downtime, he rebuilt like the entire upstairs of his house, and it looks like a professional decorator did it, like someone you would hire, $150,000 job. Just someone, everything he does at high quality with full focus. And that shows up even in a friendship with him.
Yeah. Probably give his wife credit for some of that, maybe all of it. I don't know, but we'll get to that. Any profundications for us, Professor? Anything to get us started?
Well, I was doing some science stuff with some of my students recently, and I'm going to throw out, we don't have enough hours in the day, right? I think you would agree with that. If that's for work and, the bag drop and new club, or just one to play more golf or the family time, we don't have enough hours in a day. We've only got 24. If you had to go with what planet has the longest day, so the most hours in the day, what's your gut say? Where are you going with the planet in the solar system that has the most hours in the day?
Oh my gosh. All right. This is hilarious timing. My daughter, Nora, is 5 years old. She's learning about the planets, the celestial world. There's this awesome song that she keeps singing. Me and my wife last night had to look it up. It's like a rap, and she knows it by heart. But the answer, they have a 60-day, like 60 Earth days is one of their days. And I want to say it's Mercury.
Oh, you're close. You're close.
Neptune?
No. There goes my dog. Nolly is not sure, Matt.
Nolly agrees. What is it? I missed it.
You missed it. Venus. Venus has the longest one. We got to shut up.
Venus has the longest one. Nolly, she's upset for me.
She knows Chris is coming on, so she's excited. But Venus is the longest one, 5,800 hours. If you had to take a guess at the shortest day, where are you going? Based on that, where would you go for the shortest day?
All right, so Venus, that means closer to Sun. So we got to go further. Pluto's a dwarf planet. I now know that. That doesn't count.
We don't count them anymore.
So let's go with, it's out there. Is it Neptune or Jupiter?
Neptune, 16 hours. Uranus, 17 hours. Jupiter is 10 hours.
Yeah.
Saturn, 11 hours. Mercury gets about 1,400 hours. So, and Mars is about the same as us, 25 hours.
Wow. Well, speaking of the celestial fears, I hit a lot of them yesterday, not celestial, but little white golf balls in my Titleist fitting for the all-new GTS series of metal woods. It's coming out. Everyone's going to see a lot on this. We are very fortunate and privileged to be on the early side of that with Titleist as a partner of this show. Professor, give me just the 1-2 quick hits on your fitting process this go around. We haven't even discussed this yet. I'm looking forward to catching up with you on it.
I mean, it's still, I'll just start with how impressive their wood evolution has been, in the last 8 years or so. I always monitor, the newest equipment coming out, always bugging my buddy Ryan Brath, what's going on out there in the world and all that, and the strides they've made. And I appreciate the most recent one, the recent change with the GTS. I'm a front MOI guy, and having that front MOI with just the muted sound and feel to it is just dialed in. Like you still have all the performance gains. I picked up a few more yards, a little bit more efficient launch angle and spin match with this one. But then this feels like there's just so much more control off the face with the new face that they've developed and the new horseshoe thickness around it. So yeah, awesome.
The sight for me, like you saw it front and center last week. I'm vibing with my GTs last year or 2 years running now. And I always have that little bit of nerves going into a new fitting, even though I'm excited. It's that adjustment occasionally, but the sight of them, if you enjoy the GT look, I just saw that perfectly in the GTS, and that sound was my first takeaway. That sound was a slight bit more like a silencer, muted, but it hit me hard with the first swing. And I really appreciate that. That obviously contributes somewhat to the feel of the club. I'm not like you. I don't dive into all the data on it. I'm more of a feel guy, but the feel was improved for me. And I couldn't be more excited about the GTS I got coming my way. Moved up from a GT3 to a GT, same window, same launch angle, but I actually was able to bring down some spin at that height, and it's a bit of a gain for me. So we got more coming on that. We can't say a ton on what they've changed, but very exciting stuff out of our friends from Titleist. So thanks to them for their support of this show, their support of New Club. Go out and find your certified fitter. Get on the tee sheet now because they're going to be busy this coming year with their fittings. Well, Professor, let's get on to the show. Chris Wilson, welcome to the Backdrop.
Thank you, guys. Really, really excited to be here. And I shed a tear during the introduction. You guys are both great friends, longtime friends from back in Ohio, and we're now all spread out across the map. But I did have one kind of interesting nugget. Kevin, didn't know you were an outer space expert. And fun fact, if you go to the 2010 PGA Tour media guide, which I'm sure is somewhere on the internet, that was my rookie year on tour. They had us fill out this form, and I didn't know what to put for interests and hobbies because I was young and fresh out of school, and golf was all I did. So I put outer space as one of my interests, but I didn't know the answer to your question.
That's awesome. People are probably thinking, man, who's this new guy? I guess he's deep in outer space. Who knew?
Rocket scientist.
Chris, one of my early memories of you was, I don't remember what high school hosted the tournament, but it was my favorite course for the longest time, and that's Scioto Country Club in Columbus, Ohio, host of this year's senior U.S. Open, I believe. I remember the nicest chat. It took me till I was about 25 to hit puberty. So you just towered over me as a high school kid. You were big young, I think. But I remember having the nicest chat with you on the putting green, and then you went out to just wax me by 10, in that tournament. And I, ever since that, I kind of just followed, your career. And like you said, it's been a privilege to be a friend of yours now and hang out, but just got so much admiration for you at every tier. As I said in my intro, at every tier, you kind of, figured it out and found your way. One of my favorites, and another mutual friend of ours, Pat Goss, talked about you winning the Big Ten championship in 2006. And I quote, I found this one in my research, one of the best rounds, if not the best round of golf I've ever seen. So that's the caliber. I mean, Pat Goss has seen a lot of players and a lot of great ones and a lot of golf. That's the caliber we're talking about here. When you hear something like that, what does it mean to you?
Well, let me quantify what he meant. It's not the lowest round he's ever seen by far, because it was only 1 or 2 under par, but the conditions were pretty tough at Conway Farms. We had about the wind chill had to be high to kind of mid 30s, sideways rain, wind. I'm sure there were several teams in the Big Ten going into that final round that thought we shouldn't be playing, but the greens were puttable. There wasn't that much standing water in the bunkers. And I think I shot 70 or 69 at Conway Farms, which is a par 71. And I don't know, I was low round by 7 or 8 shots over Ryan Brehm, who finished second. But it's not a round of golf you'd put your dog outside in, that's for sure.
What was going through your head during that round? I'm always fascinated by mutters. Like you and Chris Miller, the two that always come to mind, that when the conditions are tough, it's like, that's who I want as my member guest partner. Like, let it rain, let it be sideways, because we're going to lap the field. So when you're in a round like that, what is it that, just locks you in where the conditions just don't seem to matter?
Well, less than locking you in, I think it frees you up a little bit, right? I think you take swing thoughts, you take kind of trying to control the round, and you just throw it out the window because you're trying to survive. You're trying to stay warm, you're trying to stay dry, keep your clubs dry, your hands dry, and you're really not thinking as much during a round like that, which helps you kind of react and be more athletic and go out there. And also, I think your expectations change, right? 72 or 73 is a pretty good score in bad conditions. Whereas if it's sunny and 70 degrees out, you got to shoot 65 or 66 to kind of keep up.
Well, looking at that amateur career, your college career, Chris, what did you hang your hat on at that level? Like, what was it that those are such impactful years for us as people and golfers, college golfers? What did you hang your hat on, and what did you have to get better at? Like, was there something you could lean, but then also, if I'm going to put in, X amount of hours of practice, I need to focus in on this.
Yeah, well, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts too, as two great former college golfers yourselves. But I think in junior golf and amateur golf, I was a pretty good ball striker, right? So if you go out and hit 15, 16 greens as a college player, it's hard to shoot a bad score.
Mm-hmm.
I was constantly working on my short game and putting. You mentioned Pat Gosby and my coach, who's a wonderful short game coach, wonderful putting coach. Worked with Luke Donald, Matt Fitzpatrick, these guys who are some of the best chippers in the world, whether it's cross-handed or conventional. So I was lucky to have Pat in my corner and really help kind of accelerate my short game improvement while I was in school. And funny enough, after school, after I turned professional, that became sort of my crutch as a player, and the ball striking sort of petered off, and which is why I'm not still playing anymore. But college is a time. For me, it was about becoming a better golfer holistically. Now, there's little pieces that I mentioned there that contribute to that, but like, how do you get to the point where you can get through Q school, or you can make cuts on the Korn Ferry or the PGA Tour with your B game, and then a couple of times a year you do have your A game, and that's when you have a chance to win on the weekends. So that's kind of was my focus all through college, is how do I constantly 1% get a little bit better, to where when I don't have my best stuff, I can compete, at the professional level.
At the professional level, Chris, let's take that transition when, you win
Hold
the
on.
big...
Well, before you get there, Professor, I want to squeeze in one more in the college,
Go
because
for it.
I just thought about the listeners here, and our audience. The two top ones are the state of Illinois and the state of Ohio. And so I'm going to get some controversy out of this episode. Chris, you grew up in Columbus. The professor's wearing the hat. You didn't go to Ohio State. You went to Northwestern. That had to have been a decision, right? Or a tough one, maybe. What pulled you to the other side of the Big Ten?
Yeah, as you both know, I grew up a Buckeye. I'm an Ohio State fan, and coaching staff at the time there was great to me. I did take an official visit to both Northwestern and Ohio State, among others, and was fortunate to be offered the Jack Nicklaus Scholarship at Ohio State, which is an honorary, I don't remember what the percentage was. And as Kevin mentioned in the intro, I like to take my time in making important decisions, talked to my family about it, thought a lot about it. I think the opportunity to go get an education from Northwestern was really high on the list, but probably just as high was to go experience and do something different on my own. I think if you were to look at my high school graduating class, I bet 60% went to Ohio University, Miami of Ohio, Ohio State, or Akron. And the rest, maybe 30%, went out of state and did something else on their own. And I'll never forget someone telling me when that subset that went out on their own came back that first Christmas break, their freshman year, like the maturity level and what you could see in those people that had to go figure out how to do their own laundry and travel. And if professional golf was in the future, I viewed going out of state and doing something new on my own as a part of learning how to do that in the next career.
Wow.
That was
yeah.
a much more sophisticated answer than I was hoping for. That just speaks so well to your maturity.
It wasn't
and
just like Chicago pizza's better than Columbus
I was
pizza.
just gonna we should kick it to Matt. Like, why did you choose Chicago? Because it's Chicago, probably, right?
to get the heck out of Akron. No, love where my hometown. To you, Professor. Take us to the pro game.
Yeah, so I mean, I want to build on that. I think we're going to get into how moving away to Northwestern maybe helped you throughout the rest of your life and going through that growing experience. But let's now circle back. I know a lot of our listeners are just, it's hard for people to have a concept. Yeah, you mentioned Matt and I had college careers. I would not call them successful by any accounts. And certainly when we got there, I'll speak personally, I didn't have the mindset of like pushing myself and, okay, what areas are going to get better and how I'm going to grow to the next level. And I think until someone's been there, they can't answer this question. So I'm going to kick it to you. When you move from that college level, you're a Big Ten player or you win the Big Ten championship, you're one of the best players in the country coming out of college, and you make that switch to the pro game. What changes? What you're so observant when you all of a sudden open your eyes and you're now a professional and you're like, what do I need to do better? What was your answer as you made that transition?
Hopefully nothing changes, but when you go from playing the game with a team at the amateur level and you start to layer in more travel, the money component, the kind of doing it for a career component rather than doing it and then having school and classes and workouts and a social, like it becomes consuming at the professional level. And I think the challenge for a lot of good college players making the transition is how do I still kind of maintain the feeling of it being a game and a sport and something I grew up enjoying and the reason I got into it, as those pieces on the fringe start to sort of take center stage. Funny enough, like you guys probably experienced this too. In college golf, we were lucky and we got to play some really nice golf courses, really nice high-end private clubs, tournaments. And you go to the mini tours and you're playing a casino resort in the middle of nowhere in Mississippi, on the kind of what was the Hooters Tour back then. And then you take a step up to the Korn Ferry Tour and you're playing nicer places than the PGA Tour and you're playing nicer places. But I would argue that some of the courses you play in college are even nicer than most PGA Tour courses. So the quality of field and the depth of field is much stronger at the professional level. I would say the golf courses are not as good as some that you'd play in college. But I think trying to maintain the feeling of why you got into the game, what you enjoy about the game, with having these ancillary things coming at you left and right is one of the biggest challenges.
In what ways did you learn to handle that and learn to cope with it? Because I'm sure you were intentional with that and you saw these starting to creep in. Were there any specific things that you did to address that?
Yeah, well, and I mentioned this earlier, like Pat was a wonderful coach in college and he would harp on us every single day. Like, what is your process? How are you getting better as a golfer today? What's, you hear about it in all other sports and coaches talk about 1% a day or 1% a year. Like, how do you just incrementally improve? And if your focus is remained on that, it sounds super cliche, I know, but you don't have enough sort of bandwidth to start worrying about the other stuff when you're out there and when you're doing your practicing and you've got your routines and you're doing your putting drills and whatnot. So I tried to stay focused on those things and continually sort of monitor them and adjust them as needed, to try to block out all the other stuff that could creep in.
Chris, I might have some of these details incorrect, but forgive me if I do. Also, the structure of the Q School and PGA Tour, Korn Ferry, former Nike Tour, it's all kind of blurred in my memory. But you got your card, your PGA Tour, your first PGA Tour season, like you said, was 2010, and you got that through Q School, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Now, was that direct to the PGA Tour at the time? And is that where, like, I know you and I talked recently about a period of time that were just, missing cuts. And I think that was maybe where you lost status. But talk about the struggle to keep a tour card. The margins are so thin at that highest tier, even the mid tiers. I can't imagine what that's like to stay committed to the process while having those things going on, and the, you're very aware of the outcomes to them.
Yeah, you're right. So I got through basically every stage of Q school in 2009 in the fall, when it was the very, very old format and you can get straight to the PGA Tour, which I did. And then I had a pretty good number, coming out of Q school. I think I finished 10th or 12th. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was a pretty good priority number. And you've got a sophisticated listener base, Matt and Kevin, so I'm sure they understand the re-ranking of the numbers and the reshuffles. But essentially, you're given a number of starts at the beginning of the year based on your priority ranking. I was fortunate and had a really high one, so I got all the starts early on. And what happens is every 6 or 8 events or so, they reshuffle those numbers based on how much money you've made. And then the next chunk of events, you'll either get in more or less, depending on how you play in the first set. And so the challenge became pretty quick. Like, if you're not playing well, you have to keep playing, because every opportunity you have means that you could have that 1 week where you could reshuffle in and make more cuts and make more money and get in more tournaments. But if you're not playing well, the advantage is actually to go home for a week and work on your game and see your coach and kind of reset. So you're always in some sort of a spiral, whether it's an upward or downward spiral when you're playing professional golf. And like, how do you, when it's not going well, when it's a downward spiral, how do you stop that? How do you get out of it when you know you have to play to try to reshuffle in or to shuffle up? Or if you're playing well and you don't have a great number, you just got to wait until the next reshuffle and sit on the sidelines. So I think the challenge becomes like balancing improvement, focus on a process. This is when the money component comes in and the reshuffle comes in and the money list and all that, because at the end of the year, FedEx Cup is what those guys are shooting for and majors are what those guys are shooting for. You've got to play well and consistent the whole year. Does that answer your question?
It does. Yeah. Yeah.
So, Chris, I'm interested. I've been in the woods the last couple of years, and that probably is because we haven't played golf together in the last couple of years. And my best years of golf has always been when we've spent, a weekend together. If that's going to an Ohio State game and practicing at Charlotte Country Club, or come up to Raleigh for a couple of days and just learning and absorbing from you. When you were playing professionally, and you did hit that little maybe spiral going down, what was sort of your way to dig it out? What were your mechanisms to say, okay, like I need to reset? What did you do to like correct course?
Yeah. So I think, Matt, you and I talked about this a few weeks ago. I did work a little bit with Dr. Rotella out of Charlottesville, who's a world-renowned sports psychologist. And one of the things we always came back to when situations like that popped up, maybe you miss 3 cuts in a row and you start trying, is, it sounds very counterintuitive, but how do you try less? How do you care less when you miss 2 4-footers and you have a third 4-footer for par on the next hole? Like, the instinctual move is to grip it just slightly harder, to take a little more time and a little more care on that putt that matters, or that shot that matters, or that tournament that matters. When in reality, I think to free yourself up, back like we were talking about the inclement weather, like, you've really got to care less about the result and be a little bit more athletic and reactive in what you're doing. And it's really hard to do. It's so counterintuitive that when things are going poorly, you want to sort of try harder, right? And to turn it around. And typically that makes things worse, right? Because you start thinking a little more, you start taking a little more time, you start pressing, and you start, hey, this shot is really important because I just made 2 bogeys, and then the result's going to be even worse. And it's, you got to kind of free yourself up from that. If you can, absolve yourself from results. But it's much harder said than done.
I'll never forget a tip you gave me. I still use it to this day. This goes back to 2017, and it's one of those big reasons I made the mid-am in 2018, because I had some high-pressure shots in that qualifier to make the mid-am. And you gave me a tip where you said, we become so results-oriented, and you're like, how ridiculous is that? Like, you get stressed about a result that hasn't happened. And you gave me a tip of like, you just need to look up in the sky and just laugh at yourself about how stupid it is that you're getting stressed. Like, just laugh and let it go. Like, I'm stressed about hitting the water and I haven't even done that yet. And just be like, you're just such an idiot, Kevin. And like, I've always used that to make me care less in pressure situations now, just like laughing at myself about something that hasn't even happened yet.
I think it was like, Kevin, look how big that little stream is going across, like, and look how much land there is on the other side and on this side. Like, odds you hit it in there are pretty low.
Yeah, it's like, why are we getting so stressed about it?
There's, I do our research now. This show is an amateur hour, Chris. I know you've been a loyal listener since the early days, but I had to dig in on your Korn Ferry Tour win. And the stat that jumped out at me was, so 2012, the Price Cutter Championship. Man, these
That's right.
names. I want to see like a collage of just Korn Ferry Tour tournament names
Yeah.
alone. But down in St. Louis, Missouri, I believe.
Springfield.
Springfield, thank you.
Yep.
You took it down. You won a Korn Ferry Tour event with a final round 67. And I wanted to talk about putting on this show because you gave me some great putting tips in our round together at Broom's Edge a few weeks ago, but also just a philosophy and a thought process. Just, you're such a thoughtful guy, Chris. And so I definitely want to get into more of your short game putting experience, selfishly, but also just a good conversation. But here's what I found. That week you won on the Korn Ferry Tour event. You were 102nd of 136 in putting. Is that correct? Were you just Iron Byron out there? Were you just flagging things?
If that stat is correct, which it may be, that's even more of a reason why I'm sitting at a desk now. Because I feel like I made everything I looked at that entire week, and I couldn't have shot a single shot lower. I think I remember the final round. I entered it in the next to last group, maybe 1 or 2 shots behind the lead or something like that. And this was a course where, like, if you shot 1 or 2 under on a 9-hole stretch, you were losing ground to the field. I mean, it was a birdie fest. And I had made 9 straight pars to start Sunday's round, and I was like 5 or 6 shots back going to the back 9 and played a great back 9. But man, I remember making everything I looked at. So if that stat's right, I made the right decision.
That's so funny. I'm new to like looking this stuff up. So I don't know how PGAtour.com does it. That might have been after 3 rounds, maybe, because I was looking at, each independent round. I don't know, but win's a win, baby. And tell me about that. Like, I think a lot of us, don't really understand what's like the reality of what happens out there. I think you told me, you won over a little over 100,000. I hope you don't mind me sharing, but I think a lot of us don't really have the idea of like what it is or where that falls. And so that amount of money is not life-changing at all. But what is? Like, are there elements of winning out there that totally change your life?
Yeah, I mean, sure. Like, I think everybody's going to view this a little bit differently. So I'll answer it from my perspective. The money was great. I think I won $128,000 or something that week in a playoff and literally could not have played any better to get into a playoff and win in a playoff. The important piece of winning, whether it's on the PGA Tour or the Korn Ferry Tour, you have job security, right? And in the world of professional golf, having a card somewhere, a place to play, a schedule to create, kind of knowing what's coming up next year is arguably just as important as the money, if not more. Obviously, there's all kinds of backgrounds in professional golf. There's people that come from money and have support. There's people that have sponsor dollars that taking care of it all. There's people who come from nothing and they're footing the bill themselves. So the money thing is going to be, you're going to get different answers across the board based on who you ask. But the thing that I think is most important is the stability of a career and a year or two that follows or more. And it just gives you more opportunities, right? And the more opportunities you have, the more at-bats you get, the more chances you're going to have to play well and get to the PGA Tour or win on the PGA Tour.
Chris, so you mentioned it freeing you up. In what ways did you take advantage of that after the win? Like that comfort and that sort of like, okay, I've got stability.
Yeah.
Did you change your approach a little bit? Or you're like, okay, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, but now I can, I don't have the stress of my schedule. What were some actually pragmatic things that you maybe did or chose not to do once you did have that stability?
Yeah, I actually tried. So the win can mentally free you up, but the way I approached the week I won worked. So I didn't want to change anything from that week. I wanted to still feel a little bit of that back against the wall, a little bit of that pressure. And I don't think I finished the year great after that. It was sort of a one week season for me. I didn't even get my PGA Tour card and graduate with a win, which is uncommon out there. I think I finished 26th or 27th or 28th or something like that on the money list, and 25 got their cards. So maybe I should have done it differently. And maybe I should have just relaxed a little bit more and said, hey, I'm in a good spot. I know where I'm going to be next year. But I didn't want to change what I knew worked. And so I maintained the same level of intensity, practice, kind of commitment to what I was doing, just because I knew the formula was right there. I probably should have chilled out a little bit, Kev, just to be honest with you. Like looking back, I mean, I know I'm 41
I mean,
now. Yeah. And I was 20, what is that? 8, 9, almost 10 years ago. I was 30, 31, something like that. I view the world a whole lot different now than I did then, which is different than I did when I was in college. I'm sure you guys would agree.
it is so easy to retrospectively say that, right? Like, oh yeah, because I didn't go on and win the Masters or win majors or PGA, like, oh, I should have maybe done things differently. At the same time,
Yeah.
yeah, you could have done things differently and maybe things would have been worse than they turned out to be,
True.
right?
True. If the puck was a quarter of an inch the other way, it would have missed completely, right?
That's
We talked about, you gave me kind of a lead there into something I was going to segue into at some point. And you mentioned the security of that, of having a place to play and the psychology there. But obviously for so many of us, finances have a lot to do with that as well, right? And I'm curious if, knowing what you do now, and what I love about what you do now, Chris, is we got together and heck, we talked more about business and investing than we did about golf, but it was the same thoughtful process, to quote Coach Goss there, that you're taking to that. Did you ever, while playing on tour, whether it was the being surrounded by guys making more money than they probably ever have, or did you ever consider this second career of yours while still competing? Did it ever cross your mind that you might end up where you are now?
So, towards the end of my career, my last event was October of 2019. I would say the last year to year and a half of my career, those thoughts started to sort of take more meaning. And in that world, in the professional golf world, if you don't have all of your chips pushed in, you're playing against 145 or 50 guys every week that do. And I think when your brain starts to think about other things and plan Bs and the rest of your life and like, what's the next career? Like you've already taken some of those chips out of the middle. And so you're not playing against everybody with everything you got. And I got some great advice from Pat when I was making the transition, because as you can imagine, he's seen a lot of really good high level college players and amateur players who've either tried to play professionally and gone on to work in the business world successfully or unsuccessfully. And there was a few kind of really poignant things that I took from those conversations. One was like professional golf provides you autonomy, platform, the ability to make more money than you probably ever dreamed, some sort of mild celebrity status if you're a household name out there, flexibility, travel in the world, all these things. And the guys who really struggle, I think, transitioning from the professional golf industry to corporate America, let's say, are searching for a lot of those, if not all of them, in the next job. Whereas, like, what are the two that are most important? Is it flexibility? Is it travel? Is it money? Is it, I don't know. It's a different answer for everybody. And so I really thought about that long and hard, and then drew a big, bright red line in the sand and said, okay, this is what I did for, 12, 13 years in the golf world. Here's what it gave me. Here's what I'm looking for moving forward. Here's one or two of the most important things I want. One was flexibility and working for a private company. And then here's what I am today. It's very different than what I was. And that's one of the reasons, frankly, I didn't feel like going into the golf industry after professional golf, is I thought my game and the ability to play at a very small percentage of what it was at a high level would serve me better in the business world than it would staying in the golf industry. And it turns out, I think I made the right decision there.
Chris, you've alluded now several times you've changed as a person, right? You even said there with drawing the red line and here's who I am now. And then a little bit ago, talk about like, well, maybe I should have done things differently. I've learned and I see the world differently now. What has that been to shift in you that you've, the person you've grown into now, and you look back and be like, oh, I am different.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, like, the titles change, the industries change, the people you're spending your working hours with change. It's a lot of change, but the one kind of thing, or maybe things that I think have remained consistent, is I've always had decent communication skills and soft skills and the ability to talk to people, whether it's, I'll never forget the all-female roller derby team I played a pro-am with on the Korn Ferry event who was drinking tequila at 8 a.m., which was a very fun day for them, versus the really buttoned up, serious professionals that you play a pro-am with. And you've got to be able to communicate with both those subsets of people. And so having that skill set. And then the other thing is, like, I've always tried to be more interested than interesting. Which is what's kind of weird about this conversation is you guys are asking me all the questions. So I feel like I'm on a stool, and I don't like that. I want to ask you some, but like
you do ask a lot of questions. Maybe you should start a podcast. I hear a lot of people are doing that these days.
Yeah. I heard there's no money in it though. I don't know. I'm just teasing you guys. You guys did an awesome job. I think being more interested in what somebody else is doing. I don't think any of us would disagree that leaving a conversation talking about yourself for an hour, you walk away and you go, man, that was a great meeting, or that was a great conversation. And looking back, it's like someone else asked you all the questions, right? And so there's a core sort of philosophy, I guess, I have around how to behave and how to act like a good human on this planet. And some of those are part of it. And regardless of industry, whether it's professional golf, whether it's the investment business, whether it's running a new club, whether it's being a professor at a university, like those carry over.
Yeah, I think so much. We hear the stories of what we talked about in the first part of this, what it takes to excel in golf and at the highest levels that you did, but we don't hear as much about the excelling afterwards. And the stories can be very similar. But the one takeaway I have in that, Chris, is, you talked about 1% better, but you talked about, there's so much focus in that. And it's almost like we think we'll be happier, more successful people with so much freedom. But really, if you just focus on the one or two things and not the freedom of all of the things, and kind of, put some limitations in place, which, let's face it, corporate America or a certain life is probably going to be more limiting than, say, a PGA Tour player who can jump on a private jet whenever they like, probably. But with that actually comes structure and process and the ability to become a lead at something else. And I see you doing that. And I just, I love it because I'm a guy who loves to spread myself a little too thin, and I get into a few different things, hosting a podcast, blah, blah, blah. But when you start to narrow in and put limitations on it, you can be a lead at something else. It isn't just God-given gifts of this one thing. It's a process and work ethic. And yeah, just very cool to see you transition.
Well, thank you for saying that. And I also appreciate you thinking I'm a lead at something else, which I'm certainly not. Don't get me wrong.
I said on your way. I think I said on the process.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. It's a lot more than being able to have a good conversation with someone and be interested in what they're doing. You have to be a subject matter expert, right? And one of the reasons the firm I joined is called Brown Advisory, and we're an investment firm working with large, complex families all around the world. And, like, it was not beyond me that, like, I needed to understand what we do and how we do it and get way more educated on the landscape of the investment world than I was going into it. But having great mentors, having the work ethic to put your head down and learn, coupled with kind of the skill sets I mentioned earlier, I think have gotten me off to a good 5.5 year start here.
Chris, I have no doubts everyone listening to this episode, are going to just, wow, Chris is incredibly composed, right? So well, like you said, you're such a good communicator, such a good engager in whatever the people you're around want to talk to. And you've always been able to embed yourself in any situation and just fit in. But going back to that transition, you're 5.5 years in now, going back to that transition, was there anxiety underneath that as you were going through that transition that ever kind of came up? And I know you have such a great family support structure with your parents and Courtney, but internally, what was that like at an anxiety level as you were looking to make the transition and thinking about that?
It's a really good question. And to be totally honest, like I haven't sat and thought about that a lot, but if I'm looking back 6 years ago, 6.5 years ago, almost now, I was never concerned. Like I always maintained really good relationships with people I'd met along the way. I'd built a network through golf and through living in Raleigh, North Carolina here and traveling the world that rightly or wrongly of me, I felt like I would land on my feet. Now, would I have thought my first job after professional golf would have been at a firm like this where the support systems and the mentorship and the people I work with were so helpful? Maybe not. I mean, I feel very, very fortunate and very lucky to have joined the firm I did. that's been a big part of helping me be successful in these first 5 years of this next phase for sure. I mean, look, yeah, like making the decision was hard, right? Actually coming to grips with the fact this is not only what I did for 12 years as a profession, but 4 years of college, 4 years of high school, middle school, like growing up. I mean, it's a huge part of my life, right?
It's an identity, right?
It's an
It is an
identity.
identity.
Yeah.
Exactly. And knowing that I could continue to use that skill set and still play golf, it's not like you're a college football player that doesn't get drafted. It's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go play pickup football here, on Saturday afternoon. It's a little different than that. So I knew golf wasn't completely gone. It's actually kind of we've used freeing up a lot, but I'll say it. It was kind of freeing up to know that I could go play golf and not have to worry about what I shot or what somebody else shot. Right. I mean, Matt, we talk about the process and controlling the one or two things. There's so many things out there you can't control that have an effect on the result, and weather, tee time draw, other players' scores, sleeping up, on your neck wrong and waking up with a crink in it or something. Like there's just a lot of things out there that are out of your control. And so, yes, it sucks when that stuff happens and you get a bad draw or someone beats you by making birdie in the last 3 holes. But that's why being tied to the result when it's affected by outside forces is kind of silly. It's harder again in practice to do than it is to say, but I don't know. I went off on a tangent. Sorry.
It's a good one. And I'm going to selfishly take us someplace, Professor. I know you got another question. I'm going to cut you off right there because any loyal listener to this podcast knows I'm going through some putting dilemmas, some putting struggles, and maybe they are too. But first off, since we were kids, I've always admired every aspect of your game, but always admired your short game. I always saw you make a lot of putts. I always saw you just that composure on the putting green. So when we were playing together and I was going through said challenges this year, I can't even remember the simple question I asked you, Chris, and that spawned a 3-hole discussion that I will title The Philosophy of Putting. I mean, for 3 holes, we didn't talk about a single thing other than putting. I wanted to get a little bit of that today. Let's start with the thing that we all have joked about, which is when you have a caddy, whether you're at the club or you're in an event or you're out at Bandon or overseas, and a caddy says something like, it's uphill, be aggressive. I know that irritates you. It irritates me too, probably in different ways. But let's start there. Why? Why is that like the worst thing you ever want to hear as a talented putter?
Well, caveat this by saying you're getting putting advice and knowledge from someone who finished 132nd out of 136 in the field at a Korn Ferry event. I'm going to say those stats are not right, by the way.
Maybe those probably are.
Yeah.
Those are strokes gain stats, right? That's
exactly.
Just like,
yeah.
Putts,
I want that.
Well, we don't care
I'm
about
treating
those
that as like the health warning or the disclaimer for anybody that takes the advice that they're about to hear. So we've already checked that box. No one can, legally sue us here. But
yeah. Well, let me start by saying, with all due respect to club caddies, professional caddies, Bandon Dunes caddies, resort caddies, it's a thankless job. It's a hard job. You've got to meld your personality and the joke levels and the advice levels to who you're working for and looping for. But I'll get to the answer here. Give me 2 seconds. I view putters and golfers in general in sort of 2 buckets. And there's probably some overlap, but general 2 buckets: people who see things with curved lines and people who see things with straight lines. So if you think about putting, let's call them nonlinear and linear, right? Nonlinear being curvature, linear being straighter. If you've got a 10-foot putt, let's say it breaks a cup left to right. Typically, a linear putter will see a straight line from their ball to a point a cup left of the hole. And they try to start the ball on that line, then it breaks off of that straight line. A nonlinear putter will see that ball curving and see a curved line going from their golf ball into the hole. And I've always been a nonlinear kind of curvature type visual person. And so when a putt is breaking, my process, and this is what we talked about a few weeks ago, my process is, okay, if it's uphill or downhill, doesn't matter. Where do I want the ball to go into the hole so that it only rolls, a foot and a half by? And on this example, this left to righter from 10 feet that breaks a cup, using the clock method, let's say it goes in the hole at 7 o'clock, roughly 7 o'clock on the cup, 6 o'clock being facing you, just a little to the left of that. Okay, from there, I see this curve line coming all the way back to my golf ball. And then I pick a point just in front of my ball that I've got to roll it over. And so based on that thinking and that visualization, if someone tells me it's uphill, be aggressive, and I hit it a little too hard, it's going to go through the break and miss on the high side, likely, right? Because I've already determined where it's going into the hole. I've already gauged the speed, right?
Yeah.
If someone sees that same putt going in at 9 o'clock, they've already gauged the speed. They're just going to hit it a whole lot softer. And their curve is going to be a little bit more curved. Mine's going to be a little bit straighter. And so when I hear a caddy say, hey, it's downhill or hit it 80% or it's uphill, be aggressive, I get where they're coming from and I appreciate them trying to help. But I've already factored that in based on the curve line and the read that I see. Does that make sense? And so I think, one of the things we talked about, Matt, in that 3-hole stretch, and I got kind of excited because I love talking about putting with you and Kevin, is frankly, like when I was playing, this is probably an overgeneralization, but I really never thought about speed. I'd read the putt, I'd see it going in the hole, where it should be going in the hole based on it rolling a foot by. That is your speed. And I use the read to determine that. So like if you've got a huge swinger and it's going inside door, I know I've got to hit it soft subconsciously. I know if I jam the thing, it's going to go way through the break and miss high. So that's kind of my philosophy on putting. There's not a right way or wrong way to do it. You see guys use the line, you see guys use no line. Typically the linear putters are line people, the non-linear or no line, but there's any combination of that out there.
Were you a no line guy, Chris? When you
I
played
went back and
competitively,
forth. Yeah, I went back and forth.
Yeah, that's kind of what I do.
And the reason I would do that, Kevin, is if I just was not either matching the speed and line correctly or the putter felt kind of bulky in the hands or I hadn't, putted well for a few rounds or a few 9-hole stretches, I just needed to change it up. So I just changed something, which goes against sticking to a process, I know. But when you're out there in the heat of battle, you got to do something to shoot a score, right?
Yeah, it's all coming back to me of that initial question was on pace. And you just said it so well of the linear versus the curve, that you're one of the two. But you had a more shocking statement than when we talked about it the first time, where I just kind of had to go, wait, what did he just say? And that was that you've never thought about pace. I think that was in there somewhere, but you told, I just have never thought about pace. And for me, whether it was, early instruction as a kid or working through these challenges of mine this year and years past, it's always been the two things, alignment and pace. And honestly, there used to be the third, and that was mechanics and stroke, but I've kind of learned to not over prioritize that because a lot of guys have a different setup. A lot of guys, sternum putters, arm bars, crosshand, what have you. The stroke can be manageable in a bunch of different ways. But I always thought about alignment and pace. But your description of linear versus curvature, how you see it, really frames well why you haven't had always the need to that, because it's almost like one holistic thought for you. Versus,
yeah, how often do you hear you got to match line and speed to be a great putter? Yeah. Right? When you match them, that's one thing. Let me pose a question and a challenge to you guys and your listeners. If you were at home on your carpet or your hardwood floor and you put a golf ball down and you put a penny or a dime or a sticker on the ground a foot in front of that golf ball and you hit it 100 times, how many times out of 100 would you hit that sticker? Probably a lot. From a foot away, right?
From a foot away, I hope a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was my last step in my putting process. As I find that thing on the green a foot in front of the ball or 18 inches in front of the ball, and I got to roll it over that. And that's on this curve line early on to where I think it's going to go in the hole. Now, that's not to say, let me caveat by saying, like, rarely did I think about speed on the golf course, but I had to train my touch and feel and my speed in practice. Okay. So like if you play golf once a year and you say, oh, I don't think about speed, like you're not gonna be a very good putter. If you work on your speed and you do speed drills and you train your touch and your feel daily, it really comes down to like how well you're reading the greens that week, and are you matching it up? And are you starting it and rolling it over that dime, a foot in front of you?
Give the listeners your favorite speed drill. Someone that's going to, spend the next couple of weeks
Yeah.
to go into the putting green. Like, what's your favorite go-to? Hey, I need to get my speed dialed in. So that way I let it be subconscious when I'm actually out, in my member tournament.
I'll give you two really quick ones. The second one's a little hard to explain, but I'll try. The first one is, go 8 to 10 feet out from the hole, 3 balls, put 2 tees like a gate in the very center of the hole, making it a straight putt, which is going to be firm, right? Because it's going to have a little bit of break. You got to hit it pretty firm. Then move the 2 tees just slightly to one side. So you got to hit it a little softer and still make it and go through the tees. Then move it even further. So you just really got to die it and drip it in on the high side. And that'll teach you like, hey, I can make this putt with 3 different reads and 3 different speeds. Therefore, why would you think about speed, right? But you're training the touch and the feel to know which ones are which and how it feels different. And the other putting drill that back to Pat Goss made us do all the time. And we hated this one because sometimes you were there till dark. You find a hole, you lay your putter down on the front edge of the hole on the ground, and you put 2 tees in each end of it. And then you do it on the sides and the back. So you basically create a putter length box around the cup where the front of the box is lined up with the front of the hole. Then you go 15 feet, 18 feet, 21 feet, so on. 3 balls. They all have to go either in the cup or inside the box, but each ball has to be past the previous one to move on to the next length. So if your first putt you hit is towards the back end of the box, you've either got to make the next 2, or if you've got 3 inches back there, they've got to be in that 3-inch, area you have left in the very back of the box behind the first ball. And if you do that 15, 18, 21, 24 feet, you could see where you get to 24 feet. And if you do it uphill and then downhill, we missed some dinners when I was in college because we were still out putting under the lights trying to complete the drill.
There's a similar one as part of my golf blueprint provided by my friends at Golf Blueprint. I want to add one more that I really enjoy, and that's put a tee or a coin 15 feet out, walk another 15 to about 30 feet out, and put another one, and then go back to your original start point. And I think it's 10 balls. They ask you to get inside of that 15 feet from the start, and you gotta just go past the next one. Go past the next one. And you think, 10 balls, 15 feet, no problem. You can be out there a while. It might even be less than, maybe it's 12 feet by paces. I think you guys do it by paces. Anyways, I love that pace drill because it forces me to just incrementally, what does it take? And especially I do it with a little bit of a break to it so that I start seeing that die pace on top of each ball. Boy, you're reminding me of some good stuff here, Chris. I think I got some homework.
I think the same thing can be said for green reading with other people, like caddies and playing partners in pro-ams and stuff. Is like, if you're not practicing your speed and your touch every day, like the odds of you hitting 5 putts the same speed, pretty low. So there's essentially 5 different reads you could make that putt at if you're going to hit it 5 different speeds. But I think as what I saw the best players in the world do, and my advice to your listeners would be is like, really get good. Create a consistent speed with your putting. Once you've got a consistent speed, whether it's a die putter or you're an aggressive putter, doesn't matter. But as long as it's the same, then you can really start to improve your green reading skills. It's really hard to try to do both at the same time, or say, hey, I'm going to hit this one firmer because it's uphill. Well, that changes what you've done and how you see greens and how you read greens, the prior 10 holes. So I think the 2 matter, but speed to me is, consistent speed, whether it's dying or firm, is really how you start to become a better putter.
Well, I think the speed drills, what I've always found in terms of my game, then anytime helping someone else out, to your point, just helps you free up as a putter too. Because if all of a sudden, like you said, you make speed trained into your subconscious, then now it's just like seeing a line and like letting your natural putt. And frankly, like, we're not good green readers. Like, you're gonna misread a lot of putts, but the one thing you can control is your speed, right? That is the one thing you can control, and every putt you hit, that is in your hands. Where like, yeah, reading a green, okay, I think it breaks a ball, but it broke half a ball. Or there's a couple footprints that you just can't see, right? And it just holds its line. But when you have the speed down, you can guarantee. I mean, it's one of those, like my high school coach is like, you can always guarantee two putting, right? You can do that. If you're a good speed putter, you can basically guarantee that, at least where you're hitting that make speed that's, 2 feet by, and you're just trusting that. Like you can at least take that part of the equation and make it a subconscious thing.
Yeah. I mean, if the three of us hit the same putt, it's going to be three probably different speeds, which therefore is three different reads. So for me to tell you, Kevin, it's a left edge putt, and you, Matt, it's a ball outside left, they're both right.
That's right.
I have a very important question to this conversation, because I believe, and I had a coach, Donnie Darr, another one of the better short game mental coaches ever, who I have a very funny story I should tell on this podcast sometime about how he helped me determine what type of putter I was. And it was exactly what you just said, Chris. And his word was always cram, which I thought was funny. I always thought so you're either a die putter or a cram putter is what he used to say. And I haven't had the opportunity to ask him, why did you use the word cram? Was it just to get everyone back to a die putter? Like, did you believe that was the one option? And I truly don't think he did. I think his main point was, I don't care what you are. You need to know what you are. And I had this very funny story about how he helped me determine that. But I know I'm a die putter now, and I have been for years. However, I don't know, and to hear your first big takeaway of the linear versus curvature and how you see a putt, I frankly don't have a clue which one I am, because I've gone back and forth for so long, being linear or curvature. And frankly, right now, I think I'm doing some type of hybrid. I don't even know what it is. But here's my important question, Chris. For both of those categories, die putter versus cram putter, and a linear putter versus a curvature putter of how you see it, how do you determine that? Is it just a simple choice that you have to commit to? Or are we kind of instinctually, whether it's eyes, mind, what have you, drawn to one of the others? And how would you go about figuring out which one you are?
So I think there's a little bit of guess and check, a little bit of testing, a little bit of hypothesizing. The question I would ask you, Matt, if you're standing in the middle of the fairway with a 6-iron in your hands and a middle pin, how do you see that ball arriving from the fairway to the pin?
I see it right to left. I'm a draw player.
So you see curve. Okay. So if I were you, I would start with the curvature, the nonlinear, and play with that.
That's a great, okay, boy, this is going to be good, because I see curve and I stand behind visualizing that shot with its window and its height. But as I'm standing behind the ball and I go through my process and I pick a point, it's usually, I'm looking for tree line. I'm looking for something away from the pin, away from the green, to just get me in the moment. And I pick that, and my last look is at that, not a curve or pick. So it's kind of is a hybrid in a way, isn't it? Now I have that aim point. That's what I aim to. And I actually do, in the full swing, have something 2-3 feet in front of me that I'm hitting over. Right. And then I don't forget about the picture. I'm just aware of it. Is putting the same of what I just described?
Yeah, kind of like, and the other test I would run you through and tell you to try is pick a breaking putt and put a tee out left or right of the hole where you think the start line should be, or the apex should be. So let's go back to the putt that breaks at top left or right. Go put a tee out left of the hole, about a cup outside the left edge, without using a line on the ball. Set up to an aim at that tee, and have someone behind you say, you are aimed at the tee or you're not aimed at the tee. And more often than not, if you're a nonlinear putter, and I learned this from Mike Shannon down at Sea Island, you will be aimed roughly a cup left of that tee, thinking you're aimed at the tee, which tells me you're a nonlinear putter because you're trying to visualize subconsciously the ball ending up at that tee. Versus linear people can aim pretty much at that tee, give or take, an inch or two, which again gives you the option to make it with, depending on your speed, and do it with a really big swinging breaking putt that breaks 4 or 5 feet, and go have a tee out there 4 feet left of the hole or right of the hole, and try to aim it at it, and have Kevin say, you're actually aimed 5 feet left of that tee, not at the tee. And that'll tell you a lot.
That's how I learned that I was a non-linear putter. Cause yeah, it's like people are like, how many cups out is this putt? I'm like, I don't not like I just kind of see the hole and like see a start line and just see it kind of curving down there. So then it's like, well, I guess like I had to
Well,
learn this when I caddy for Blake. Like I need to learn like, okay, when I see the read, like how much break is that? Can I actually like say it now, matching his speed, how he likes to putt?
yeah, I'll never
Um,
forget a quick story when I was working with Dr. Rotella. We were talking about all this stuff and putting athletically and seeing curves. And he was telling me a story about Padre Harrington. I think it was Padre Harrington who he was working with at the time. He said he was so descriptive in the curve line he saw. He said it was, yeah, it's bright orange and there's like fire on one side where the ball can't go low of the line, and there's like fire on the high side. So like I've got to keep it between these walls of flame. He was like going on and on about how descriptive he was of this curve he saw. And I'm like, dang, like maybe I see train tracks, but I don't see fire everywhere. Like,
Rainbow Road from those of us of the millennial generation playing Super Mario Kart, maybe.
exactly. Maybe that's for you, Matt. Rainbow Road.
Rainbow
that's
Road.
such a Padre comment. All right. So my whole intention of getting you on this podcast is to put you on the spot.
I got him on the podcast. Correction, but okay, go ahead. We'll take that. Go ahead.
Next in the golf career? I feel like we've got a little scummy am coming into play here. You know, former Korn Ferry winner. How soon until we're winning a USGA mid-am tournament? I feel like that should be. I'm gonna put you on the
Chris,
spot.
I'd like to apologize to our guest. I would like to apologize on behalf of the Backdrop Podcast to our guest. Everyone who listens to the show a lot knows Professor's on a vendetta or
A warpath.
something, a warpath. There is not much that gets him more fired up in the game of golf than the whole, reinstated am.
Unless he's going to be my 4-ball partner, then we'll allow it.
Yeah, exactly.
Shoot, I'm screwed.
Yeah. So I when I stopped playing in 2019, I reapplied. I think I had a 3.5 or 4 year wait. And the whole formula they use, I know it's changed. I think everybody's a year now, maybe. And so I recently, like in the last 2 years, got my amateur status back. Have not played a ton. I've played some club things down in Wilmington where we play. I've done one mid-am qualifier and I missed by one. And I'll be honest, like I haven't practiced at all in the last 5 years. I just play golf now. So my speed is not great.
I can confirm he's not lying on this. He's still, I teed it up with him last time, he hadn't touched a club in 2 months. He did go 66, 65 on a weekend. I was with him.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Chris is not lying when he says he's not. Yeah, putting in the
time. I will add. Sorry, Chris, just to make everyone feel better. I will add our round together in South Carolina. I'm fairly confident it was bookended with 2 triple bogeys, one on the first and one on the 18th, maybe doubles. I can't recall exactly, but there's a lot of good golf in the middle there. A lot of good golf.
Well, I don't. Thank you. It's an interesting debate, Kevin. I think I certainly understand where both camps are coming from, right? If I'm an amateur golfer that never turned pro and I'm in my, I played in college and I'm in my late 20s, early 30s, and I want to still compete out there, I'd probably be a little miffed if a bunch of former pros got their amateur status back and were coming out and beating everybody. On the other hand, as a former professional, like I would like to still play competitively somewhere and get those juices flowing again and play in tournament golf. And I'm not sure where I would do that if it wasn't, in the mid-am type events and the amateur events. I don't think there's a great answer right now today. I would say if former professionals were completely dominating all the amateur events, you'd have a much stronger argument. I think we've seen some win, but we haven't seen them win everything and just completely blow out, the lifetime amateur. Until that happens, I don't think you're going to see any sort of change. And if you did see change, I don't know what that would be, frankly.
Yeah, I think the setup, like your setup that you went under was pretty good. Like, yeah, you had to wait, 4 years or whatever it is. Like that makes a lot of sense. And you can play professionally.
Right.
The 1 year thing, I think, is an explanation of why the mid-am last year, right? In the match play, was it 15 of the final 16?
Yeah, totally.
What it means to be a former professional that's the impossible thing to define, right?
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean and where do you draw the line? It's an impossible situation. I am completely for everybody getting their status back if they're playing by the current rules. If they're like, hey, wait a month, like, yeah, take advantage of that. Go play, like come back to the AM game and play. Right.
Yeah.
It's a regulation issue that's almost unsolvable.
Yeah. No, it is the way it's currently set up. And I don't know what the answer is. I don't have a great answer for you.
Yeah.
I just know that both sides have really good arguments towards it, for it and against it. But, I will say I'm able to get, this is your political answer. Are you ready? My politically correct answer. I'm able to get my competitiveness in business now. So I don't necessarily need the pre-amateur.
The amateur game will benefit from your presence. I have no doubt about that, right? In the mid-am game, of you being present in the mid-am events, it will benefit when you are back up and running and putting the time in and comfortable getting back in.
Unless you're running the tournament, then I won't be invited.
Unless you're my partner.
Yeah.
Then he'll.
That's right.
Now we get to see the true hypocrisy of the professor. Where I fall on that is, to your point, Kevin, Chris is going to be a great addition to any amateur event. And, I'll combine two things that I know with him that I'm not certain of with other reinstated AMs, but I do know with Chris is, he's grinding at a desk where he's sitting right now, as I am most days. I've been able to, through our conversation, see that clearly and understand that. So I know he doesn't have the time for practice that I do, and we're going to make the best of what we got. But also, I'm going to go back to me being that 14-year-old kid on that putting green and shaking this dude's hand and talking to him. Like, I want that at every tournament I show up, and I know he's going to bring that. So I'm all for the Chris Wilsons of the world being reinstated. I don't know how they evaluate those two things, but it's all good for me.
Yeah, Matt.
Professor,
I appreciate you saying that. It'll be really interesting to follow, I think, where it goes from here. I don't think no one has a great answer for it today. And I don't know that there will be a great answer in the future, but I'm interested to follow it for sure.
Yeah, it'll always ebb and flow with the amount of people trying to play professional too, right? It's going to be dictated. Yeah. But without active mini tours, it kind of becomes a null and void question. But then, yeah, you get the John Petersons of the world. Like, I think we kind of probably make way too big of a deal of a situation where there's like 5 cases that are problematic.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones winning.
Yeah. And that's where, the mid-am last year was like the one that's like, okay, I think we do need to actually seriously talk about this now. If that is a trend that it continues where, yeah. Because, some of the amateur players, right, they're basically professionals in the way they play, right? The amount of golf they play, to Matt's point. Like, Chris, you work incredibly hard at your job, and I know this firsthand. Like, the hours you put in there don't give you the time to dedicate to your game, and you're not one to want to go tee up tournaments when you're just kind of halving it on the golf side. And you got plenty of AMs out there that are playing 6 to 7 days a week in money games and traveling the world. So, at some level, they are professionals.
Yeah, we should bring back the phrase professional amateur and just like, that's who I am, that's who they are, and that's what we are.
That's right.
I do like that phrase. There is, and I've done a little history deep dive on that and like what that actually could mean. So there's a solution out there, USGA. Come to the professor for your answers. We'll come up with something. And our audience, they just want anything that, quite frankly, pisses Kevin off. I think people really enjoy when he gets fired up. Like, it's so rare that, I'm the guy that's up and down. When you get him going, who knew reinstated mid-ams would be the thing. Well, Chris, you've been generous with your time, and I know you got other things to do. Want to thank you for coming on, having a chat. I don't think this is the last. I think we would love to have you back on, other elements of the game or just stuff going on in the golf world. As I said in our introduction, one of the most thoughtful people in the game, one of the most thoughtful people I know. It's really fun to cut it up with you.
Well, I can't thank you guys enough. You guys have done an awesome job with your show. Like you said, I've been a lifelong listener since it's been in existence. And any excuse I get to talk golf now for an extended period of time, I will take full advantage of. I love to do it. I love to help and mentor younger players and talk to them about the game and kind of my path and in a way that's humble, but also hopefully informative and educative. And you guys do an awesome job of that, every single show you have. So I'd love to come back sometime and just really appreciate both of your friendships and what you're doing for the game of golf, for amateur golf, and look forward to next time.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Professor. And thanks everybody for listening. This show's nothing without you guys. So send us a note at thebagdrop@newclub.golf. Tell us what we should have grilled Chris on, other than the things we did, and give us some ideas for future topics and guests. Like, we've gotten some really cool notes lately on different things that the professor and I, frankly, were already thinking about. And just to hear that you're enjoying the show and hear that you would like to have us cut up some other topics, it really energizes us, motivates us to keep things going. And thanks, as always, to our partner of this podcast, and that's Titleist, with their all new GTS metals coming out soon. We'll be able to share a lot more details from our fitting experience and just the new technology that the engineers at Titleist came up with for this one. It's just a continuation, as the professor said, of how great they are at innovation, and specifically the last 5 years of the Metalwood family with this new GTS line. We'll catch you guys on the next one.